Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Ampire.
Hey, babies and babies and babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Happy game day, everybody. The Thursday night special. Commanders and Philadelphia tonight. Eagles haven't lost since their Week 5 bye. 7-2. They lead the NFC East by a half game. First meeting, obviously, between the two. What would be their first losing streak of the season. They sit at 7-3. And boy, the setup is tough. Tough tonight with all the injuries that they're dealing with. But the good news was, looks like Brian Robinson's going to go. Their top 3 tackles are all questionable, so we'll see which ones do go and which ones do start and whether they're all available. Big deal there, obviously, too. They'll be back to the backup kicker again, Zane Gonzalez, because Austin Seibert is out. And the Eagles don't have anybody really notable that they're missing, and in fact, they're getting healthier. Jordan Mailata, their left tackle, is going to be back for the first time in a month, thanks to a hamstring injury. All right, all things that are in play as I caught up with one of my booth mates, Logan Paulsen, who joins us from the sideline every week on the official broadcast of the games with me and London Fletcher. And we chopped it up about last week and this week as we get set for the game tonight. Last week was, I don't want to harp on too much of it. I want to talk about the Eagles, really. But last week, what I thought was a little unusual, and just because it's unusual with this team, the execution was a little bit more off than it's been all year. Did you kind of see things the same way after rewatching the game against Pittsburgh?
Wasn't kind of to the standard that this team has set, and that's going to happen sometimes over the course of the season. I think you got to give Pittsburgh some credit. They came out, did some different stuff, probably more pressure, played some different fronts, made it hard, and I think that rush for that group did a really nice job of, putting Jaden in a tough spot and accelerated his process a little bit. He missed some stuff. There were some drops. There were some procedural things that, this team has not done. And so, again, that game, I'm sure you felt it when you were calling it. It had a little bit of like a playoff vibe to it, just in terms of the energy and the effort that the guys are putting out there. So, obviously, I think that's excellent. And people say, why is that? And it's because, Jaden Daniels and this team have seemed to get better every time they've faced a new data point. And I think that data point is exceptional because it kind of shows them that they can go a little bit farther, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. And hopefully that sets them up for tonight's game.
It was pretty wild. Like the miss to OZ when they had the ball at midfield, the drop by Ertz on a subsequent drive later where they had the ball at midfield again, the miss to McCaffrey was off, and then there were missed blocks. And that's actually the part that I was surprised by. I think the underlying story of the success is 5 is really good. Dan's got these guys playing hard. Brotherhood's real. This is a better roster than people gave it credit for. And they were executing at a very high level. And I think that's what was actually somewhat surprising. I wasn't accustomed to seeing it.
Yeah, obviously, it was surprising. But I think, when you got some new pieces in there on the offensive line specifically, young pieces and some guys that haven't played a lot of snaps for you, like Trent Scott, like that happens. You don't have the relationships built. You don't have the reps logged. And so I think when that happens, like you can only coach so much. You can only do so much to get guys ready. And at some point, you're going to get to a spot where you can't communicate the same way that Wiley and Cosme do, or and Coleman is going against some of the better pass rushers in the NFL. He's going to have a tough game. And I think it's important to remind people he's a rookie. So a lot of that I think is just kind of attrition, and hopefully they get healthy.
Yeah, I think that's it. The larger thing is I just feel like they need a bye week really badly, and this was the worst time to hit a Thursday game against a good team.
Yeah, and I think like we talked about, this had a playoff type vibe, playoff type feel to it, and Philadelphia, not to compare them, obviously they kind of had like a little bit of a pushover game against Dallas, and so I think the Commanders are going to be coming in a little bit banged up, a little bit tired, a little bit sore, short week, and it's really I think it's going to be a real testament to Dan if he gets these guys ready to play, because this is a tough situation to be in, and I know people talk about there's Thursday nights every week, but coming off of probably one of the better teams you've played all year into maybe the best roster in football is a tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, the situations matter. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, that happens every week and everybody gets one, but where you are collectively, what your relative health is, matters when you come into these things. I always feel like one of my old lines always is, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And this isn't a very good setup. Doesn't mean they can't pull it off, but it's just not a great setup tonight.
100%. And I think that's, and again, we're not going to make excuses, and they wouldn't make excuses, so we're not going to do that for them. But it is tough. It's going to be a tough situation because that is a good roster, that is a good team, and Philly, man, like pound for pound, probably the most talented roster in football. And they have, the one knock on them is they weren't being coached effectively, and so now all of a sudden they're being coached well. They're getting after it, and they're dangerous. They're very dangerous on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, really great players on offense. We'll get to them in a minute. I want to stay on Washington's offense for a moment. Okay, last couple of weeks, Giants, who walked into the matchup with Washington, most sacks in the NFL, brought a lot of pressures, actually more than they usually do. Pittsburgh brought a lot of pressures, maybe even a little bit more than they usually do. Trend? Is that what this is? Is this how people are looking at Daniels in this offense now?
I don't know. We'll see how I think a good test of it would be what Philly does, because Philly does not do that, really. They're not a big pressure team. They kind of get after you with four. They do blitz, but it's definitely not with the frequency that the Steelers brought last week, or, like what Cleveland did earlier in the season. We'll see. I mean, I do think that Cleveland had a very interesting model. The Steelers had an interesting model, and I don't think that's by accident. I think they're used to playing a scrambling, running quarterback in Lamar Jackson. And so I don't know. I don't know if Vic is going to kind of adopt that, because that's not what he majors in. He majors in, kind of softer zone defenses, kind of amorphous back end, split safety structures, and he's going to get after you with four. They're going to play light boxes, and if he does modify, then he's definitely seen something that he feels is a weakness for Jaden or a weakness for this team, and I think that's something to keep an eye on.
I mean, eventually everybody's going to adjust. We've turned the corner, and this is. I just feel like they're coming at him. And I don't know if it's because they sense that the season's catching up to him a little bit, or they feel as if this is what's necessary, because if you don't bring pressure, he's been pinpoint accurate and is making great decisions with the ball, doesn't turn it over. I don't know what it is, but it feels like a trend to me that this is how people have decided they've got to come after him. And at the same time, he's going to get hit more. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to determine trends right now after two games, and what I would say is that it makes sense to me that this is the solution, and what I mean by that is, you kind of want to play heavier run structure boxes, get more guys in there than you have blockers, then play tight man on the perimeter, because what does this team do well? They do how do you account for the quarterback, right? You need +1 in the box. You need to make sure you're matched up on the outside, as opposed to kind of playing softer zones over those kind of 3 receiver sets where you can throw those bubble screens, so those now routes. Having pressed opportunities on the perimeter for those guys makes it tough to throw those routes. And so I think that's something that sticks out to me, is like that is a good solution if you've got the personnel to do it, if you've got the identity to do it. And I'm not saying that Fangio won't do this, but I also think guys kind of have a thing that they do well. And Vic Fangio is the godfather of modern NFL defense for a reason. They always play these coverage structures. Now, if he comes out and does it, then you have your answer. I think that it is a trend. This is the solution. I don't think he's going to do that, though. I don't think that's what he wants to be. I don't think that's what he thinks is good defense in 2024 in the NFL.
Okay, let's talk about Brian Robinson, who we think is going to play now tonight. Missed the last couple of games. Hamstring, missed a game earlier this year. Knee injury. Where do you feel his presence most when he plays or doesn't play?
I think to me it's just the first and second down efficiency. I think when you look at the Steelers game, and I'm not sure it would have been any different behind the offensive line as it existed last week versus Pittsburgh, but there's more negative plays. There's 9 negative plays in last week's game, which was a season high. And one thing that B-Rob does so well is he just keeps you on schedule, even if it's getting 2 yards when the run's blocked for 0, right? He always finds a way, seemingly, to get positive yards. And I think as a play caller, there's so much value there to just making sure you're on pace or you're on schedule enough to kind of stay in your bag. We're not in 2nd and 10. We're not in 3rd and 10, because our running backs are super efficient. And I do think that's something that he brings consistently, is that rushing efficiency. Because, again, he can do multiple different things. He's got great vision. He's got great balance. He's got great power. He's got great speed. And so all of those things together really bring up the floor of the offense and really elevate the offensive line. And so that's something that I think it gives Cliff a lot of confidence when he calls a game. It's fun to watch Cliff when B-Rob's in there, because he knows that the run's going to work. He doesn't kind of stray away from it. So I think that's what he gives. He gives the play caller confidence, and he keeps the offense efficient, which is really, really important.
Yeah, they ran the ball well against the Giants overall, but the yards per carry was down about a yard per carry on the whole. I thought the running backs were outstanding in protection in that game specifically. But my point is this about with B-Rob, that extra yard doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge. Like the 2nd and 7 versus 2nd and 8, 2nd and 6 versus 2nd and 7, 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 2, it's enormous. And that's where I feel him because it feels like it's there when he's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, honestly. I think we're saying like that's where his value lies. And it'll be interesting because I do think the Giants are a good defense. I think Pittsburgh's an excellent defense. And so is that just the function of playing defenses that are a little bit more committed to stopping the run, kind of came into the game plan? I think it's important to remember that's the second time the Giants have seen this team this year, and they kind of were able to say, oh, this hurt us last time, we're not going to let it hurt us again, and kind of adjusted their plan. And so, that's the one thing about running the football. I don't care how good the runner is. If the offensive line isn't good and they are willing to commit resources just in terms of manpower to stopping it, you're going to have a hard time doing it. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to kind of watch, regardless of personnel, is just how Cliff adjusts and this offensive staff adjusts to these subtle tweaks that they're being presented in terms of saying, hey, we know you want to run the football. We're not going to let you do it. Now, what's Cliff's answer? What's Cliff's response?
Okay, let's talk about the defense for a moment. The rush defense is ranked where it's ranked. They've had a number of tough games. They are taking on a mega talent tonight in Saquon Barkley. The Eagles, the big story with them in offense post their bye and why they're winning so much is I think they kind of fundamentally went to the run game. They're focusing more on running the ball. They're focusing it more often. It's working to the tune of the way that they're winning right now. So if you're Washington and you're thinking about their rush offense as a whole and Barkley as a dynamic playmaker on his own, how are you thinking about them defensively tonight?
So for me, it's I know everyone wants to say stop the run, but I think what I would expect this week is a game plan very similar to what we saw versus Cincinnati, which is a lot of too high safeties, a lot of zone coverage, and that's more of a function of what's on the perimeter for them. And I know Saquon's a very devastating weapon, but if you can kind of limit him, even if he's averaging 5 yards a carry, I know this sounds insane. If he's averaging 5 yards a carry and it's a 12-play drive, Jalen Hurts has a propensity to turn the ball over in the red zone. Right? I think he's got 4 red zone turnovers this year. So I think that's something that I would kind of be okay with, like just work your way down the field. I don't trust this offense. Like they're very talented, very, very talented. Offensive line's amazing, running back's amazing, tight end's very good, the receivers are outstanding, maybe the best duo in the NFL, but they are very inconsistent. And so I'm counting on the fact that the more you're on the field, there will be a spark of inconsistency, and usually that's sparked by Jalen Hurts. So again, we're going to kind of bend but don't break. We're going to rely on our offense to score some points. I think that's the way to do it, and it's not easy because they're so talented, but like you got to kind of pick your poison, and I'm picking you going on a 12-play drive, running the football a ton, as opposed to me getting burned for explosive plays. Because when you really look at their offensive efficiency, it comes from explosive plays. Now, those explosive plays could easily come from the running back, no doubt. But I think we can limit the perimeter players' explosive ability and kind of live with Saquon. Because despite them being a good rushing team, their rushing efficiency is way down compared to years past. So I'm going to bank on them not being totally locked in that regard. Hopefully they screw something up and we can get off the field.
So, okay, this would be similar then to at least first half against the Giants.
Sure.
Right? Where the defense, like everyone was talking about, they're getting run on. Yeah, they were inviting it.
Yeah.
They were, go ahead, right? I mean, they were. And to the tune of 12 minutes of time of possession in the first half. But the Giants, to your point, ended up with no points.
So I think that's what I would look to is I would say this is much different to me than last week versus Pittsburgh, where they were so committed to running the football. It was part of their identity. It's part of they're going to – and you needed to do that. You needed to make sure you stopped the run in that game because I didn't believe Russell Wilson could hurt you. But in this game, I do believe Jalen Hurts can hurt you a little bit. I believe there's too dynamic on the perimeter to do that. So I'm like, hey, like we're picking the lesser of two evils here. Like we're going to just kind of play coverage. And when you watch Jalen Hurts, he's a very good football player, holds the ball for a crazy amount of time, puts the ball in harm's way a little bit. He's not Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is maybe the best quarterback in football right now in terms of his ability to find the open receiver. You're not going to get that from him. So I'm just going to rely on the fact that at some point that you watch film of them, you go through these clips and you're like, okay, they're on a roll. Oh, we got an incomplete pass. Oh, we got another incomplete pass, and all of a sudden they're punting. And so I'm relying on them just not being efficient at the quarterback spot over the course of a long drive here. And that, again, it's not perfect, but I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, it hurts. Listen, his record is what it is, and some of his stats rushing the ball are what they are. He's got 10 touchdowns this year running the ball, and he can be dynamic. And when they're in third and short situations, you can't stop them. I think their running game is just too good. You just can't stop them. But to your point about him, when he is throwing the ball, like if that first read isn't there,
It gets a little dicey.
real dicey. Yeah. He holds on to it. It used to be he would escape and run. I don't see as much of that anymore. So I think to your point too, if they can get him out of that first read, you got a chance with him. He will put the ball in harm's way. He will hold it too long. This team's gotten a lot of sacks in recent weeks, so maybe there are some plays to be made.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. And you got to kind of, it's not going to be a pretty game. There's probably going to be a big yardage total at the end of it. But if he turns the ball over twice or 3 times in some cases, which he's done this year, then you got a shot. And I think that's ultimately what we're looking for, right? With such a dynamic, talented offense, as long as you give yourself an opportunity to win the football game in the fourth quarter, that's all you can ask for.
All right, let me ask you big picture because we've turned the corner and we're in the second half of the season now, and at 7-3. Be honest, what did you think when they came into the season? Did you think we would be here playing a 7-3 versus 7-2 game tonight?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think, I had a lot of faith in Dan Quinn, a lot of faith in Adam Peters. I, love Jaden Daniels, love the guys they signed, but it's hard to galvanize a roster in 9 weeks, to get this level of production, from a rookie. And it's really just exceeded all expectations, and I think now they're going to face a different type of challenge. Like the NFL season's long, it's mentally fatiguing, it's hard every single week. Can you keep them focused for the back half of the season? And I think that's the thing that I'm kind of curious about is like, this is amazing, but now you have another amazing feat to kind of make sure you get to where you want to be. And so again, really surprised. And I think a lot of people in the building would probably tell you they're surprised too, to a certain extent. But
if they're being honest, right?
If they're being honest, yeah. Because again, they're all smart people, but it is a surprise, pleasant surprise. And now it's like, can you finish it out?
Well, then let me lean on your experience with Dan Quinn, because you played with him before. There must have been downturns in a season that you played with him. So what does he do to keep everybody on board? Because I think we're both sitting here kind of saying the same thing. I would love to see them win tonight, and I don't think they can. But I don't love the setup, and it would be the first losing streak of the season. And then all of a sudden people start questioning how good was this team really on the outside. So I wonder where Dan Quinn kind of lands with your experience with him in dealing with downturns of a season, because frankly, they haven't had one yet.
Yeah. I think the thing that Dan is always so excellent at is it's not what you've done, it's not what you're going to do, it's about the moment. Be in the moment, maximize the moment. And really, as a player and good players and good coaches, that's literally all you can do. Is like, what can I do to win this game, to win this rep, to win this opportunity tonight? And that's it. And I think he does such a great job of kind of quieting the noise, quieting these types of questions that we talk about here on this podcast, and saying, hey, we don't need to, that's not us, that's not our thing to worry about. I have to worry about blocking a 6 technique, and you have to worry about covering A.J. Brown. How do we maximize that opportunity tonight? And that's really the best coaches I've played for, the best organizations I've played for, have the ability to get that done every single week. Because when you start thinking ahead and when you start thinking back, none of that stuff's helpful. It's about, what can I be productive doing now to maximize this opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't even think this isn't a hot take. They win tonight. It is a statement win by this team with the way that it's set up, with the turnaround, being here. That's a really good team. They've been surging, right? On both sides of the ball, they've been surging. If they pull this off tonight, I thought the Cincinnati win was a big win. I think that Arizona win's looking better and better and better by the week, how competitive they've been. I think the Chicago win, people see them going off the deep end. They were 4-2 when they showed up and played Washington. That was a completely different team with a different mentality when they played them. But this one tonight is a statement win if they pull this off.
I mean, this would by any measure, this would be an amazing win. I mean, I think when you look at the Philly defense, they're the number 1 ranked defense over the last 4 weeks or whatever it is. The offense is playing significantly better. They're so explosive. They're coming off kind of a bad loss by Dallas, and kind of a non-competitive game. And for all of the adversity this team has faced, the Commanders, the injuries, the short week, the competitive nature of the Steelers last week, the physicality that they played with, if they come out and beat Philly at Philly, that's a good win by any measure, and call it a statement, call it whatever you want. It would just be spectacular.
All right, I look forward to it. I'll see you tonight.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it also.
Up next, our weekly visit with John Keim of ESPN and the John Keim Report. This is the Bram Whiteside Show on ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a one-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Time for our weekly visit, early week visit with John Keim of ESPN and the John Keim Report. They play Thursday night against the Philadelphia Eagles due to the Commanders. This is turning into a very tough setup. I don't want to be defeatist about the whole thing, but this is an injured team, short week, good team that's surging. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's a bad setup tonight.
It's not a good setup, and, I think what they need to do, get through this game. You never mentally punt on a game. You go into every game think you can win, and they should think that. One thing that Dan Quinn has talked about, which I agree with, it's a room full of strong competitors, and I think it's a room full of people who love playing football. You don't always get that, which is funny to say. So all that is good. But the reality is that they are a banged-up team, and they're coming off a very physical game and a tough loss, but more so a physical game, banged up. Again, all the things that you said on the road, very good team. Get through this. You have a good schedule in December. You got the bye in a couple weeks. You can regroup. You can get momentum before the bye and be in a really, really good spot.
Yes. So I think the theme has been after Pittsburgh, and I wish they would have won because I think everybody would have felt very differently if they were to lose to Philadelphia. The sky really isn't falling here. I mean, even if they lose, it's 7-4. They are going to play them again. 2 under 500 teams showing up. So you kind of have no excuses in your own home stadium against them before you hit a bye and an under 500 team on the other side. Oh, everything's still on the table, no matter what the result is.
Sure, and as you pointed out when we talked off, that the Eagles still have the Steelers and the Ravens to play as well, and then Washington gets the Eagles back down here in a little bit. So there's a lot that can still happen in a very positive way, regardless even if they lose this game. And I think it's funny because in the past, I think I would look at it differently. But I don't think what they've done to this point is a fluke. So I think
neither do I.
Right, yeah. Right, exactly, yeah. Right, exactly. But I think that's why, win or lose, as long as, if you can come out of this still healthy, you'll get guys back in a week and a half against Dallas, and then you can get ready to roll.
I mean, last time I checked, 11 or 12 wins is actually an extremely good season. They're 7-4, even with a loss. So that's why I think relax here. I mean, there's a lot in front of them. And listen, if they pull this off, which I'll get to in a moment, I just honestly, it would be the most telling thing about this team if they could actually pull this off.
Right, and I think if a team is built to do it, I think this one is because of the mindset they have, and they do play tough. But I think, again, there are certain realities when you go into this one. And so if you get, let's say, we don't know if Brian Robinson's going to play at this point, right? So you get him back in a week and a half, probably for sure. With Marshawn Lattimore, perhaps, hopefully for them, that for their sake, you hope that he gets back out there at that point. So then you get your reinforcements coming, and then you get a bye. So it can help you in a lot of ways at that point. So I think, they're still, win or lose, if they win, they're in great shape. If they lose, they're still in good shape.
All right, let me talk about some of the injury parts and just see where you land on this. In reviewing the Pittsburgh game, I think the thing that really stood out to me, I think there's a lot of reasons why they're having the season that they're having, and I know it's, on some level surprising, but their execution has been exemplary. And it's amazing considering how many new parts are here. But they've been doing it week after week after week, which is why I think we both landed on, I trust them, that they're going to get it together. Against Pittsburgh, it wasn't there. There were drops. There were misses by Jaden, like this, and that's unusual for him. We're used to seeing him being very precise. It wasn't there. And what really stood out to me was missed assignments and offensive linemen being beat. And granted, they're beat up, and we can get into all of that, but that was surprising. And it's maybe because I just haven't seen much of it this year.
You haven't, but I also think this is really, really good defensive front across the board. Like, they have good players inside, they have good players on the edge. And so I wasn't, you knew that it was going to be a tough day for them. Pittsburgh's really good against the run for a reason, and we saw that. So, but I think sometimes what you saw too is guys like Sam Cosmi giving up some things, which that's not what you're used to. So Biadasz playing with his tough ankle, and they got around him a couple times because of it. Trent Scott playing in there for Andrew Wiley. I felt like Scott did a good job in pass protection, but in the run game had his struggles. And I think some of that goes back to, not playing a lot, and sometimes it's just more he's a fourth tackle for a reason, so I think that's part of it as well. And so the Steelers took advantage, but you're right. I think it's one thing to get beat. It's another thing with missed assignments.
Correct.
And I think you're right.
You get beat. I mean, I live with that, right?
Right.
Those are really good players over there too.
Right.
Oh, Alex Highsmith got a sack. He's a really good player. Maybe people don't know his name, but T.J. Watt made a play. Oh, gee, shocker. It's the missed assignments and the execution part that actually was surprising, because I really think that one of the big keys to the success of the team is they are executing at an extraordinarily high level.
Yeah, no, I think that, and that's a good point too. And then, it's funny because with Jaden, he missed a couple throws for sure. And sometimes there were a couple times, or one time they missed to Zacchaeus, where it felt like they were able to move him off his spot, and maybe you just rushed the throw after that. He had to step over not very far, but it was enough to throw off that trajectory on the throw, and maybe you rushed it then because you have to. And I thought the Steelers did a good job containing him, but some of those misses you're not seeing, and he's also the kind of guy, you miss those one game, you're going to hit a bunch of them the next. And so, I'll be curious to see how he responds. But also, Bram, the thing you wonder about is the toll that it could be taking, this season could be taking on him physically. And there's
Jaden.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and that's something. It's for any rookie quarterback. You wonder about that. We obviously know he has a slight frame, but it's more so just, I don't care if he has a bigger frame. There's a cumulative toll that it takes when you go week after week in this league compared to any other.
Yeah, I hear everybody out be like, the SEC's toughest league in college football. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not pro football because even in a situation like that. Yeah, 6 or 7 of the games are big deal. You're playing big-time programs, a lot of NFL players, et cetera, et cetera. 4 or 5 of them aren't that way. There's still these teams that you pay $1 million to show up and play. And so it is a very long season, and I'm seeing, you're mentioning it, and I'm seeing it. It's not a knock on him. I just think the season's catching up with him. And you're feeling it a little bit. I've been, after last week, I've been going, this team on the O-line and him need a bye.
Oh,
really badly. They need a bye, and he may be fine once they turn that corner and gives his body a break. But it's clear to me, Brandon Coleman's another one too, a rookie who you're seeing it now. This is the 3rd time he's gotten hurt since training camp. He had whatever he had in the preseason, a concussion, obviously that just happened, got over it. He had a shoulder injury the other day. He was getting beat the other day. So go back to okay, so, the execution was a little off. He was being beat, and we haven't seen a lot of that. Well, maybe the season's catching up to him a little bit here too.
Well, also for some of them, there's also more film on him now, and he's been the full-time starter for a couple games now with Lucas out, since they were rotating earlier in the year. And you're going to get more on film too of how they can attack you. But I do wonder about. Listen, when you're getting banged up like that, there is a toll it takes, and there is a cumulative toll, and you're not quite the same person that you are or that you were when the season started. So I fully ascribe to that. I think with Jaden too, you wonder how are the ribs holding up, and I think if he can get through this game fine, then you get 10 days off or 11 days, whatever it is, before the next game. Then in a couple weeks you have a bye. You would hope for his sake that helps him quite a bit. But it's hard. It's a hard league. It is, we saw him get hit in college, but you're not going to see him get hit play after play, even if it's a bump here and a drill, something there. It's like it adds up. And not to make excuses for him, because I think he can still go out and play really well down the stretch.
It is what's happening, though. That's all it is. And we watch it so closely. It's so obvious that it's happening. And it's everybody. He's a rookie. And the other thing that's happening here, too, is, and this has been noticeable to me the last couple of weeks, teams have decided they're going to bring pressure against him. Like that happened with the Giants, who brought more pressure than they typically do. I want to credit the offensive line and the running backs for picking up that pressure along the way. They had a great game. Against Pittsburgh, they also brought pressure against a beat-up offensive line, and I think you're going to see more and more and more of it. I think people do not want to give him clean pockets because he is skewering them. He is very accurate, and when he does scramble, he can be devastating. So it seems to me that the trend is people are coming after him, and they'll live and die with a couple plays that he makes by getting to the outside.
Well, what Pittsburgh did a really good job, too, by doing that, because they sent Pittsburgh, just for comparison, had 19 five-man rushes. Their previous high was 11 the week before against the Giants. So clearly the plan was keep him in the pocket, and their ends did a really good job pinching because you knew you could, and I think they knew they could drive the interior back a little bit. So now you leave him nowhere to escape, and his escapability has prolonged a lot of drives this year. So I think they did a good job taking that away. The Giants, I thought, listen, here's the thing. They still move the ball against these teams, and they still, but
they did.
But you are taking away a valuable asset by doing that. And so now you're relying on hitting some of those big plays, which is why maybe it hurts when you don't connect with McCaffrey, because the nickel and dime stuff that that is helping you move the chains was not quite there to the same level. But yeah, they have done a good job with it, especially the Steelers. Like the Steelers, I think I'll be curious to see what happens going forward. Did that unlock something, or was it just Pittsburgh? And I think, to me, a lot of it was probably just Pittsburgh, because they don't, their rush lane discipline was really good. And I will say, the Eagles do not have that same defensive front. They have a really good secondary, but not the front. The Jalen Carter is really good, but the edge rushers are not what Pittsburgh has.
Josh Watt's good, but he's not T.J. Watt.
Not T.J. Watt and all that. Right. But what I've seen in the past with that group, and even last year, what I recall, is that just how out of their gaps they would get. Do they have that same issue, or do they, like you say, send more pressure? Is that what others are going to do? I'm really curious to see how they adjust to that. And then I think, if they do that, I think this team is good enough to adjust off of that, but it does take away a weapon if teams are successful.
Yeah, I will want to credit again the running backs here on the whole have been terrific at picking up blitzes. They've been asked to do a lot in protection. Eckler's been outstanding throughout the year. McNichols has had great moments. Rodriguez had one against the Giants a couple weeks ago. Robinson's very good at it too. It's going to be key down the stretch, because the point is, I think this is a trend. I think teams are going to bring pressure. I think if you let him sit back there, he will kill you. They know this now. He's going to get hit, and it's going to start to build up. He needs a break. We can see it. The attrition's getting to him. But there's no way around it. They're going to come at him, and he's going to be hit.
The funny thing is, as much as Pittsburgh rushed him, it wasn't like he took a pummeling like I've seen other quarterbacks. He gets hit more, but it wasn't you're under siege and getting drilled. And, there were a couple plays where he gets sacked. He couldn't get out of things because of the way the Steelers rushed. But I felt like I still feel like he does a good job of getting rid of the ball or throwing it away. And there were a couple plays where you're like, oh, he's off target. Then you watch it again, you say, oh, he's throwing that away. And it's just get it near the guy, but I'm really kind of throwing it away because I'm backpedaling this pressure, blah, blah. If I don't throw it, it's going to be a sack. So, I think he does a good job with that. But that said, you are getting hit more.
Yes.
And that there is no doubt about that.
All right, let me ask you about the defense then. Here's a trend that's not good. 3 weeks in a row, they've given up double-digit points in the second half. It happened against Chicago. They shut him out in the first half, needed a Hail Mary to win. Second half, 2 late scores by the Giants. Made a game closer than I really kind of felt it really was when you watched it. I thought Washington was going to win going away. Late scores, though, that they gave up, allowed them back in. Pittsburgh, down 10, second half. That's lost in all of this. Down 10, second half. Scored late touchdowns, hit a couple of big plays. Russ made a great throw. Mike Williams makes a great catch. Probably bad coverage there, too. but it's happened week after week after week. So what's your sense of where the defense is right now?
Marshawn Lattimore, that's my sense. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to help some of that, right? One guy's not going to cure all. You just can't. But I think that's what they have missed. And I think that was obvious the other day as well, that when they have crucial situations, do you have a corner that can shut them down? Because right now, there's no confidence that corners are going to shut anybody down. So I think when you look at, I think there's stuff that you can look and say, this is coming along well, right? Or they're getting better here, but they give up big plays in key moments. And I think that's one of the hard things. I think the thing that concerns me most for Thursday night is, can they be consistent stopping the run? Because if they're not, they're just going to run him to death with Saquon Barkley and just hit him with some big plays. If Barkley is running the ball well, Jalen Hurts will be 17 for 24 with 2 touchdown passes, and Barkley will have 125 yards. Like that's they're not having to throw as much. So you need to put them in a position where Jalen Hurts has to throw more to beat you. And I think that's going to be tough but that's my concern, Bram, is the inability to consistently stop the run, because you do have a reinforcement coming in the secondary that can help with the pass.
Yeah, I mean, I was screaming about this for a month. I'm like, they need to do something like this if they want to give this team a chance to win. And I'm interested to see when he plays and what it looks like and what the personnel groupings look like, because I don't think it's set in stone. Sanders still goes back to the slot. We'll find out what happens there. The thing that is good that is happening over there, though, I think one of the huge questions about this team was the front. Deron Payne's coming on. Like, he's really, and this happened last year in the second half of the season. It was kind of under the radar because the team was playing so poorly. No one was paying attention anymore, but he's really coming along there. You're feeling his impact. I think he's re-energized. They're moving him around the line a little bit, and he's be able to make plays from different position points. Frankie Louver's been outstanding for them. Bobby Wagner's been outstanding. Dante Fowler's having a career year. Yeah. So, like all the questions, like we had a lot of questions about this team. One of them was that front. The front's been very good and consistent. And against 2 teams that had been running the ball really well the last few weeks coming into the games, they did really well against that.
Right, and I think Dante Fowler's been a very pleasant surprise. I mean, he's 8.5 sacks. Like, he's been tremendous. And I think, that is something they missed, and that's why I think when you get, again, Marshawn Lattimore coming in, I think it's going to help those guys even more. But you're right about Payne. And one thing I think that was really crucial throughout this year is they've rotated those linemen in quite a bit, way more than in the past. And so I haven't checked his defensive snaps lately, but I know at one point it was down substantially. And so it sets him up to have a stronger finish as well. So I think that's good. And then against the Giants, for example, in the first half, Giants ran for 140 yards in the first half?
Yes.
Because the tackles were getting double teamed the whole time.
And Washington was playing back purposefully. Well, they were daring them to run the ball that game.
They were, but they were getting doubled the entire time. And then they started doing the adjustments they made in the second half. I don't need to go into detail on them, but they made some adjustments where they were able to get those double teams off them. And that was big key. But you're right. Then when you start devoting someone else, what happened? They got beat on third downs a lot against the Giants. So
they were nervous about Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
They were.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so, that's where, again, if you have the corner you trust, you can not just put guys in that spot, but have confidence that you can play it well. I think if you go to a single high right now with the corners man-to-man, you're kind of doing a sign of the cross because you're not sure how it's going to go, and it hasn't always gone well.
Behind the delivery trucks that keep your life stocked, thousands of employees at BP go to work every day. People bringing a new offshore production platform online. People making our refineries capable of more, like making renewable diesel from agricultural waste. People trading and shipping fuels to our customers. And people helping truckers fill up and get maintenance at our convenient locations. They're part of the more than 300,000 jobs BP supports across the country. Learn more at bp.com/investing in America.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Prep for Thanksgiving at Whole Foods Market. Save now on no antibiotics ever frozen whole turkey, just $1.49 a pound with Prime. Sales on brie and select seafood appetizers help get things started. For sides, go with wallet-happy favorites from 365 by Whole Foods Market. And finish with decadent desserts from the bakery. or get your whole spread catered. Just order early. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
All right, let me ask you this. Since we're at this point, we're both obviously feeling like it's very likely that it could go the wrong way for Washington because just the setup and what's going on here. They win, great. You know, like I'm not putting anything past anybody, but it's a tough setup for them. If they are 7-4, do you still think they're a playoff team?
Oh, yes. My opinion hasn't changed on them at all. Even whatever happens Thursday night, my opinion won't change. It would have to be related to the health, not the play, because we're through 10 games. They've played a certain way almost every game, right? Even in Baltimore, they got out. They were, as Dan Quinn said, it felt like it was a lopsided game. They still were within a touchdown because I think the way they compete. So I like the mindset. I think they're very tough.
I mean, they gave up 500 yards in that game. It was lopsided, realistically.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't, but why did they still have a chance at the end?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, even in those kind of situations, I think it's a team of really strong competitors. I think that matters. So you're right. Like, I like the way he handled that one because I think it was a realistic view of that game.
He was honest.
He was honest. But they still, one play and you got your back. You're right there. So I think, so that's why I only bring it up to say, like, whatever they do in Philly, I think they'll compete pretty hard, but I still feel good about them down the stretch. As long as number 5 is out there, I feel pretty good about them. And then you get Lattimore healthy and Robinson healthy, then you can say, okay, now you get ready for the stretch run. But the concern I would have is both those players have hamstring injuries.
Yeah.
Those things are tricky. And so if those become an issue in December, but I still, even then, based on the schedule, and I think based on how they are, I'd be surprised if they don't have a good finish.
Yeah. All right, last thing. So this is game 501 for you, right? I don't know if it seems like you don't want to talk about it, but you didn't hold a press conference the other day. Team was that was really nice. I don't want to speak for you. They honored you for your 500th game covering the team, which dates back to the 1990s. I assume you were surprised that they did what they did.
To say I was surprised, shocked, and to be honest, overwhelmed. And I'm still overwhelmed by the after effects of that, or the whatever, people texting, on Twitter, whatever it is. It's been overwhelming. I'm not always comfortable with attention like that. But what they did was way above and beyond. Just so people know, they invited my family in.
Yeah.
And that was, Bram, that was Dan Quinn's suggestion. This is where, he's got this big game coming up, and he's talking about hey, why don't we invite his family? And I have a son who flew in from LA last minute. I have a son who drove from Charleston last minute. My other son could not make it because he had school, and he had a bunch of stuff on that Sunday. But so all of it together, seeing it on the scoreboard when I'm talking to you, and it was definitely overwhelming. I'm filled with gratitude and humility, and I feel very privileged to have done what I've done, covering this team for a long time for a very passionate fan base. So I feel very lucky to be in this spot. And I'm cognizant of that, of how much I like this job. And but it's still overwhelming. I think the reporters here know I'm not speechless very often. So
I saw the video of you. Obviously, I was in the booth,
yes.
But I saw the video after the game of you, and you was you had to walk out.
My wife even said I pulled you out on purpose because she knew that it was going to be hard. And so, but it was just, I don't usually I can make a joke or quip or something. I was I open my mouth and it's there's nothing's coming out because I don't know what to say.
Because we're not the story.
No, exactly. And that's the thing is you're not. I'm not doing this I didn't even know this was coming up. I'm not sitting there writing down how many games I've done, but it was Resh Manuel on Twitter started adding it up a month ago and said, hey, if this is right, this Pittsburgh game is your 500th game.
It's funny you say it because my wife, we saw this after the game, and she was like, well, what number are you on? And I go, I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't. And it's a lot. It's not 500, but it's a lot. I don't know what the number is.
Yeah, and I don't. I never sat down to add it up, and I'm assuming that it's all accurate because it's just not something I know how long I've covered it. I know how long it has felt at times. And I think, but I do think I'm a very big believer in approach and with the approach you take, and I hope I feel like my approach has been the right one in this period. So like
you're not using the word professionalism, but you embody it.
Well,
and I think you know me well enough to know that in the roles that I've had, various roles, I agree with that. And I think it's why we work closely together, because we understand what our roles are, what's important, and it may not be like the exact of the moment way of communication that seems to draw audiences.
Correct.
But professionalism matters to me, and I know it matters to you.
1,000%, and I agree with that. Like, neither one of us are hot take guys. You try to be very honest, but also very fair in opinions, and just see big picture and all that, and clear headed, right? And but not hot takes. And so I think people appreciate that. You're right. Like, it may not draw the huge numbers right away, but I think people appreciate that over time. And so that's what I hope people see from that or the takeaway is that professionalism is a good thing. That's what you want. But just the reaction to it is just, again, it's left me kind of overwhelmed, because you don't go out there looking for this at all. And I've just been lucky to do what I do with the people who sort of like you, and then there's a number of people in the room that I just, they're friends and competitors, and it's over the years. So, but the other thing too is, it's been a long journey. I mean, the stuff that we've had to cover here over the years has been ridiculous, and that to me is like
or interesting, depending on your point of view.
Yeah,
as a reporter,
it's been very interesting at times, for sure. And it's sometimes you reflect on like the work that you've put into it to get to do the job you do, and listen, we're not curing cancer. I'm not solving world problems, but
there's not a day that goes by that I don't realize how lucky I am to do what I do.
And that's what I am too. But I take the job very seriously. So you're going to put a lot of effort into it. Whether you want to consider it work or not, you put a lot of effort into it, because you cannot do
People
it.
don't know how much that goes into it.
Correct. I mean,
it takes over your life, and it's for me, it's always been I appreciate that part, and I want that to happen. Yeah. And I know it is for you too, because I don't think people understand the amount of work that goes into do the things that we do, even though we're privileged to do it.
Correct. And I never lose sight of that. Like, I understand I'm talking about football. I'm watching football. I'm talking to people who love football, who play it, who coached it, who still coach it, whatever. I'm very cognizant of that. That doesn't mean that you don't put a lot of hours to it. You don't make some sacrifices. Like, there are a lot of times where, it's my wife, your wife, my wife could speak to it, what you put into it, right? And so that part, again, I've never lost sight that I'm privileged and lucky to have this job. Again, in covering, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Cleveland, but I love covering this because it's a franchise that matters to a lot of people. Had a lot of down years, we know. It's coming back up, we know that. But there's a lot of passion here, and there will be that passion again, I'm pretty sure, given what they're building. Yeah. And so I feel lucky to be a tiny, tiny part of that by providing the coverage that we do.
Your first season was what?
94.
94. So it's been since 96, since they were 7-2. Yeah. So it's been a long time. You're part of, boy, that's 400 and something games to get around to having a season like that.
Yeah,
again.
No kidding. Yeah. And even then, that one was built, and I remember vaguely remember that year where when you start to think, but this team is just different. It's better coached. It's just better coached. And you have a quarterback in Daniels who's just special. And so it's the building process is much different. And I feel a lot more confident with this group than before. And here's the other thing, Bram. I've covered this team that long. I've never covered a team that has won 11 regular season games.
You might get that this year.
I might get that this year, but it's amazing how I think what would be scary. So I appreciate that. They put my picture up on the scoreboard, and that was nice. If they put my record on there, I'd have been booed because it is not good. And the funny thing is, I told someone else, I would have gotten to this number sooner if they'd been in the damn playoffs a lot more, But yeah, the record is not, as someone else says, it just means that you've gotten old, and So.
We're lifers. I know you're never going to quit, so here's the 500 more.
I'm not sure. I don't know if they make the playoffs a few more times, I could get there. But I think I'm going to have a hard time getting
This game is never not boring to me. I think that's the most amazing part of the whole thing, honestly.
The nice thing is, Bram, like, I enjoy it and love it as much as I did then.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I do. Like, I
feel like a kid when I call these games. I do. I love it.
Well, you can hear it in your voice. But, like, Monday, so there's this great day. I felt so honored on Sunday. 6 a.m. Monday morning, I'm sitting in my office watching the game.
That's right.
You know why? Because I enjoy it. Like I told Adam Peters one time, I said, man, I just love getting my coffee. It's so relaxing for me to get my coffee and go watch the game. He goes, well, I'm glad it is for you. So I'm like, well, yeah, it's probably not for you, but for me it is. Like, I like doing that. I like talking to you about the games. I like talking to Logan Paulsen about whatever. Like, I love doing that. And until that gets old, I'll still be in this room. And as long as ESPN wants me.
That's right. That's the way I feel about it, too. As long as they want me, I'm here.
Me too.
All right, John, thank you so much. I'll see you in Philadelphia.
Thanks, Bram.
Full recap of the Commanders and Eagles tomorrow. Talk to you then. Bram Watch Show, ESPN 6.